Okay, so thank you for joining us on this session. This is going to be amazing. Reza Dorrani is a great presenter, and his content on the different apps and on the platform, it's great content. So Reza Dorrani is an MVP for the business application side. He's also session is going to be amazing. Reza Dorrani is a great presenter, and just give me 1 second. Different apps. Sorry, it was another computer checking the event. Yeah, so I was telling you, he's an MVP. He's also an MGT, and he works for Catapult System as a principal consultant. So today he's gonna show us how to build responsive Power Apps. So I think it's a very important topic, to build those kind of apps that work either on the mobile or tablet, or also on the website. So thanks, Reza, for all your support, and be here at 7 p.m. So I think it's your time. So
Thank you. Away. Thank you for inviting me, and let's begin. I'll start with sharing my presentation deck first. You please confirm if you can see my deck.
Correct. And I'm sending to the live. Yeah, we're good now.
We're good? All right.
Correct.
Let's get started. So the session or the topic today is on Power Apps responsive design. A little bit about me. My name is Reza Dorrani. I am a Microsoft Business Applications MVP, as well as a Microsoft certified trainer. I work at an organization called Catapult Systems based out of Houston, Texas. I have a YouTube channel where I blog about all things Microsoft 365 and specifically the Power Platform, and that's my Twitter handle. The session is all about responsive design, and following are the learning objectives for this session. We will look at what is responsive design. Then we will look at the steps you need to take in order to plan and prepare your Power App for responsive design. Next, we will look at some responsive container controls that have been provided for us to make the responsive design experience easier for the app maker. In line with those responsive container controls are the responsive screen layouts, which are more like templates that are provided for us so we can quickly get started with building responsive screens. All of this we will look at in the form of live demos, and then I will wrap up the session with some learning materials and open the floor up for Q&A. So the first topic here is what is responsive design? Now, any Canvas app that you build in Power Apps, can I have that app running on a mobile device? Yes. On a tablet device? Yes. On the browser experience? Yes. But is that app responsive? So what is the meaning of responsive? Responsive meaning the controls or the elements on the screen change their behavior or reposition or realign themselves depending upon the real estate that is available. So there are various factors here. What's the screen size? What's the platform the user is using? What's the orientation? Is it landscape? Is it portrait? All of those factors play a key role in responsive design. So basically, responsiveness refers to the ability of an app to automatically align itself, align all the controls within its screen that it is representing to the user based upon the real estate that's available on the screen. Now, why do we need responsive design in Power Apps? Power Apps is already mobile ready. Well, let's go to the definition of Power Apps. Power Apps allows us to easily build web and mobile apps for a fully featured low code, no code development experience. However, in Power Apps, there are three flavors of apps that we can build. canvas apps, model-driven apps, and portals. Model-driven apps and portals are responsive by design. And the reason is because in a model-driven app or in a portal, you're more or less configuring things. You are not deciding the position of the elements. You are not deciding, you do not get the option to brand or style. You don't have the ability to create those pixel perfect apps. Model-driven apps, you're defining the sitemap, you're defining the structure of the app. Portals, you get those fluid pages wherein you drag and drop controls, more like SharePoint web part experience. So those already adhere to responsive design principles because the underlying architecture is responsive in nature. However, Canvas applications, the apps that you build in make.powerapps.com by going to Canvas, those are not responsive by design. And the answer for that is when you create a Canvas app, the first question that comes across the screen to the maker is, what type of an app are you trying to create? What's the form factor? Tablet experience or mobile experience? Now, if you pick tablet or mobile, that does not mean the app will just work on tablet or mobile. It will work on every device. However, the app will not be responsive. It will only scale based upon the real estate available. So if I build an app with the tablet experience, and if I view that app on a mobile device, the app will scale down into that small screen and will not be too intuitive for the user. So to ensure that great user experience for the user, it is crucial that we design Canvas apps keeping a responsive design in mind. Now, do I have to make my entire app responsive, every screen responsive, every control responsive? Well, the answer is it depends. And you need to plan for responsiveness for a Canvas app since that is the responsibility of the app maker. So here are the 4 top things that you need to think or plan about as a maker. First, what form factors or devices do you want to support? For example, if I'm creating an app mainly for the mobile and tablet experience, then I should only decide or define the logic for responsiveness just for those form factors. There's no point in adding additional logic for wide screens. Next, how should the app look on each form factor? You need to wireframe this out. On a mobile device, my search box will be placed on the top left. On a tablet device, I have more real estate to play with, so I can probably put the search box on the right-hand side, move my gallery control on the top so I can place more elements on the screen. So those kind of decisions have to be made up front prior to going and creating those specific types of apps. Third, what controls or sections within the app truly need to resize or stretch? Or the fourth one, do we need to hide certain things when I'm on the mobile device? Because there's not enough real estate to play with. Maybe those controls are only meant for widescreen experiences. So these are the kind of questions you need to be asking. And the best practice for this is to go and wireframe the experiences out so that you clearly understand the different form factors, the different devices that you're going to support, the different controls you have on the screen, and how this app would look based on each form factor. Now, do I have to prepare my Canvas app for responsive design? Isn't it that my app should have those controls baked in already? Well, the answer is no for a Canvas app. And there is an additional setting that you have to turn on in order for your app to adhere to responsive features. Now, turning this setting on does not mean your app becomes responsive. It just means you can start creating or baking in those formulas or controls for creating truly responsive apps. Now, Microsoft has made it a lot easier for us to create responsive apps by adding certain new controls. And 2 of these controls are known as the horizontal control and the vertical control. These are container controls that have responsive capabilities. And within these containers is where you can add your controls. The beauty of these containers is it automatically, based upon certain parameters that you define, properties for those containers, it makes the controls within them responsive. And to make it even more easier, there are certain screen layouts that have been provided for us that have those container controls baked in, so we can directly start creating a screen by leveraging these 3 different types of templates that have been provided. One key thing to note, all these templates that have been built are only available in the tablet format, not in the mobile format. And my recommendation is, if you're trying to design a truly responsive Power App, then begin with the tablet experience, because you get these additional features and advantages that you can leverage. And then you can write all that logic in there to make that app truly responsive. So that's the base premise of responsive designing. It's important to understand what it is. That's number 1. Second, Canvas apps are not responsive by design. There are certain controls that help in responsiveness, and there are certain screen layouts that help in responsiveness. Now let's look at all of this in the form of a live demo. So I'm going to stop presenting and I'm going to reshare my browser. And I'll need a confirmation that you can see my screen, please. Are you able to see the screen? All right. Yeah. And if I resize my screen, is it still like it's appearing smaller now?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. All right. So before we start building the Power App and looking into responsive. Yeah.
We have a question. I don't know if we wanted to keep it at the end or.
So let's keep the questions for the end. Hopefully, as I go through the demos, maybe some of them get answered. If not, I promise we'll keep the last 5-10 minutes for questions.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm on the home screen for Power Apps, which is make.powerapps.com. Now, this screen itself is an example of responsive design. How? If you observe right now, if I go widescreen, I have more real estate, but as I start reducing the width, observe how all the controls start realigning themselves. If you see this section which says make your own app, there are 3 cards here: Canvas, Model, and Portal. Observe as I squeeze the width of my screen in, you see how those cards align themselves vertically because there's not enough real estate to play with. So this itself is the web page itself here is responsive in nature. So if you ever want to know what is responsive design, well, this is a great example of responsive design. If I have built certain Canvas apps, so here's an example of a Canvas app that I built that does not adhere to responsive design standards, does not. If I start reducing the width, you see what happens? The controls are not realigning or repositioning themselves. I get this scroll bar experience for me to visualize the app. Now the same app will work on a mobile device, but the real estate will be so small. I'll get that big scroll bar experience. That is not a great user experience. Now, keeping these things in mind, let's try and first look at what are our options for creating Canvas apps, keeping responsive design in mind. So I'll create a blank Canvas app. I'll call this the Latin American Summit app. And here it's asking me the first question, which is the most important one. What's the format, tablet or phone? My recommendation would be to begin from tablet. You can even begin from phone and make it responsive. However, tablet has some additional features which help. So if you're starting from scratch, go to tablet. If you already have invested in phone experiences, then you have to work with that experience. So I'll pick tablet and click create. And this now goes ahead and creates the Power Apps, opens the studio experience with the Power App for me. Now, this app that we are visualizing right here, if I just go and insert a very simple label control and create that header experience, let's say I fill this with a background color, center align this, give it a foreground color, change the text size, and maybe call this my home, right? That's the header section I built for the app. Now, if I was to preview this app is currently by design not responsive. So if I was to reduce the width, you will observe how the app is scaling itself based on the real estate. It's trying to fit in that small size. So the app becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. As my width increases, the app becomes larger and larger and larger until it reaches its max width. That means this app is only scaling. It's not responsive. So how do I make a responsive app? Well, the first thing is you have to change a setting. and this is a mandatory step you have to take. You have to go to settings and go to display. And here there's a feature called scale to fit. By default, this is turned on for every app so that the app scales to fit the available space. We do not want to do that. So I'll go ahead and turn this off. Now, the moment I do this, if I head back and preview the app, you will observe something different. You will observe that as my width increases, my header is not truly a header right now. The label control has a fixed width. It's ending right here. And as I start reducing the width, you see the text of the label control has gone away because it's sitting somewhere X pixels from the left. So basically what's happening right now is my screen is responsive. My screen size is changing based on the real estate that's available. Now, are there any formulas that's available so I can calculate the width, the height of the screen? Can I know what's going on? Yes. Let me add a few label controls on the screen so we know what's going on. One of the properties of every screen, and all you have to do is relate to the screen itself. You can go to screen dot, and there's a property called, of course, height. And there is another one that's called screen dot, give a reference to your screen dot width. So this is the height of my screen. This is the width of my screen. If I preview the app, as I start reducing the width, you'll see that formula changing on the fly. See that? 999, that's the width I have. And if I change the height, the same experience is going to happen with the height as well. So I can resize my screen. Basically, as I'm doing that, this formula is being recalculated on the fly. Any control that you add to the screen can refer to the screen by using a property called parent. Parent is basically the parent control, which is the screen. So instead of continuously referencing the screen, I can simply use parent. It's the same formula, it's the same result. So now that I know this, how do I make this label span across the entire width? Well, if I go to the width property of this label, it's hard coded. It's 1366. That's why when I reduce the width, the label width is not changing. So let's change this. Let's change this to parent.width. What's the parent of the label? It's the screen. The text of this label, I have center aligned. Let's preview the app this time. Now you will note a difference. As I start reducing the width, the header sticks on the top and the text sits right in the center. Now this is happening because of one simple formula, which is parent.width. However, there are three other formulas that we have to consistently keep in check. One is X. X meaning the X position of the control. This control begins on the left-hand side. So the position is 0. If I change this to 5, or if I change this to 50, it will start from those many pixels from the left. Same thing goes for Y. We have the X axis and then I have the Y axis. Now for a header label, it's pretty straightforward. X is 0, Y is 0. But if I was to decide or define or design a form, I will have controls sitting in different positions on the screen. So I need to now calculate the X position. I need to calculate the Y position. I need to do some maths to define the width. And maybe on similar lines, I have to do some maths to define the height as well. So there's a lot of work that I got to do. X, Y, height, width. Yes, for the label control, it's easy. But what if I have 500 other controls in my app? Then it starts getting extremely complicated. Is it possible to build a responsive app using the 4 formulas that I just showed? Yes. Yes, in the past 3-4 years ago, I did build responsive apps for customers. And it took me almost twice or thrice the amount of the development time purely because I had to plug in X, Y, height and width formulas for every control on my app. And imagine a scenario wherein a new control came into the app. Well, then recalculations, updating the formulas, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Another key piece of information is if you go to the app object and go to advanced, there is a property called size breakpoints. Now these are predefined breakpoints for us. And here in my app, the header label that I have, because I want to show you what that value is, I'm going to change this to parent, which is my screen dot size. There's a property called size. If I preview the app, observe the size value is 4. If I reduce the width, 3, 2, 1. Now, instead of calculating the width So am I on a mobile experience? Am I on a tablet experience? Am I on a browser experience? I have to keep calculating the width and the height. That's a lot of work, right? Power Apps already kind of does that for us through this formula called parent.size. If the size is 1, it means the user is on a mobile device that is held vertically. If the value is 2, this is like a tablet vertical or a mobile horizontal experience. 3 is like a tablet horizontal experience, and 4 is a desktop experience. So these breakpoints that have been defined here kind of drive that logic. If the width of the screen goes below 600, size is 1, 900 and 600, size is 2, 900 and 300, size is 3, greater than 1200, greater than 1200, size is 4. Now, if you would like to change this, maybe I want to add another angle, super wide screen. So maybe 1400 pixels as well. If I preview the app, you see that's 5. If I go less, 4, 3. So you can decide how you want to lay out your breakpoints. And this you can leverage by using screen.size property. In my case, I used parent.size, which is nothing but the screen. So these properties are very important when you're trying to design responsive apps. Now that we've seen these features, let me go and delete everything from this app. Back to my empty blank screen experience. Now I spoke about containers, right? The Power Apps team gave us containers to ease off creating formulas or writing formulas every time for X, Y, width and height. That's a lot of work. So for getting those controls, I'll go to the plus icon on the left and search for container. And these are those two responsive containers, horizontal and vertical. You can pick any of these, and under properties, you can change the direction. If I pick vertical, this becomes a vertical container. If I pick horizontal, this becomes a horizontal container. So basically it's the same thing. It just decides the desired direction of the controls that you add into it. For a horizontal container, any controls I add into this will be stacked horizontally. For a vertical container, any controls that I add in it will be stacked vertically. So right now I have this horizontal container that I just added on the screen. And in this container control, let me add certain things. Let me add a button, a text box, a drop-down control, and I think that should be it. So let's say I add 3 controls inside this container. Okay. Now, when I say the direction is horizontal, these controls are going horizontal. If I go vertical, you see they stack vertically. That's the only difference. Of course, there are other small nuances as well. Okay, so what's great about this? I got 3 controls I added in a container. Well, at the container level, you can decide the setting of the controls within it. So for example, horizontal justification of these controls. Right now, they are positioned at the start. So they are sticking to the left. If I pick center, you see how the controls went in the center space depending upon the width of the container. There's an option called right, and there's an option called equal spacing. So as the space of the container increases or decreases, you see how those controls take equidistant spacing. Okay, so let's say I pick center. Vertical alignment. How do they span vertically in the height of this container, basically? So right now they are at the start, which is y-axis 0. I can move it in the center. So as the height changes, the position changes. I can move it at the end, or I can make them full height. That is, take the entire height of the container. In this case, I'll just say put them in the center. Another thing is gap. Gap meaning, do you want to keep some gap between those controls? I think I want that. I'll put a gap of 5 pixels. So you see that little gap. Let me do 50 first, then I'll go to 5. So you see the gap has been created between those controls, and no matter what the width is, that gap will be respected. So let's say I give this a gap of 0 for now. They'll all stick to each other. Next up is overflow. Overflow meaning what happens if there is not enough real estate available to fit those controls. So for example, if I squeeze the width of the container in, I don't have real estate. So what's happening right now? I'm losing part of the controls. So if I turn this horizontal to scroll, you will notice I get this horizontal scroll, so I can go all along the way. Or I can add a vertical scroll in case I did not have enough height. Those come in handy in a vertical container. But Reza, I don't want scrolling. Why is there scrolling? Well, there could be scenarios wherein you want to provide scrolling, so that option is here. However, the option that we are looking out for is wrap. If I turn wrap on, because it's a horizontal container, if there is not enough width available, the controls will stack vertically. Check it out in action. As I reduce the width, you see how the controls are stacking vertically? If it was a vertical container, the controls will stack horizontally. So wrap decides if these controls would wrap. And there could be a scenario wherein my width is just so less that it can't fit the controls. Well, that's because each of the controls, if I select a control, there's a property called width of that control, which you can control. That's the minimum width. So this is how it handles responsive design. If there's not enough width, it wraps, it wraps, it wraps. Great. So let's preview the app and see if it works. Let's try and squeeze the width inside. Okay. Well, not wrapping. Why is it not wrapping? Why? Well, the answer is simple. The container control is also a control. You have to treat it as a control. You would have to set the properties for this control at least. And which properties are we talking about? X, I'll set it to 0. Y, I'll set it to 0. Width, I will set this to parent.width. So take the full width of the screen. Height, I will set this to parent.height. So once again, take the full height of the screen. This time, if I preview the app, as I start scrolling in, it is fine until there is real estate. The moment it runs out of space, it will start wrapping. And you will see that in action right here. It starts wrapping when it runs out of space. Now, sometimes that acts a little clunky in the play or the preview experience of the Power App. However, when you actually test the app, it should work fine. So there are some caveats here wherein it may not work perfectly in the editor experience. But this was an example of how you can use a container. Now, the beauty is you can have containers within a container. So let's scrap this once again, and let's build a very simple header and a body experience for my app. So what do I do to start with? Well, yeah, I can go and start adding containers, but the Power Apps team has added one extra thing for us, and those are templates. So instead of starting from scratch, go to new screen, and right here you will get some additional templates. These will only be available on the tablet experience. And second, when I say tablet experience, I mean if your app is designed keeping the tablet form factor selected and you have responsive designing turned on. And here you can see the Microsoft team has given us 3 templates. Now, do I have to use these? No. You can build your own by using the containers, or you can use them and change them. So right now I created a screen and I use the template, and this template has nothing but those containers. And check it out. Here's a container. Here's a second container, third container, fourth container. You can nest containers. You can go as deep as you want. Now let's observe on something very minute. The first container, the big container that has all the other containers in it. Rest assured, this will have those same 4 properties that I coded earlier. X would be 0. There you go. Y would be 0. Width is parent.width. Height is parent.height. So instead of me writing those formulas, the template has already done that for me. And in this, I have 3 containers. Now maybe I do not want the footer. No problem. Select it, delete it. This is your this is your screen. You can do as you wish. Now in this container, I have a header that is horizontal in nature. Great. I want to stack controls horizontally. Let's create a header. I'll add a label control. Okay, so a label goes in my header container. Great. I want this label to span across the width. Typically, we select the control and drag it, but I can't do that. Why? Well, because now you're in the container realm. You don't define the width here. You select the container and define the width, or you select the control and define the width. So if I pick the container, the horizontal or the vertical alignment, I'm going to span it full height. So take the full height, and for the label control within my header control, I will go and set a special property. So every control in a container gets special properties. Here's one of those, flexible width. Flexible width meaning take the entire width of the container, flex. When I turn this on, you see how the label control spanned the entire width. And just to prove my point, I'll give my label control a background color, a darkish color. Now let's go and turn flexible width off. So it just takes the width of the control, which is 150, which of course I can change. I can make this 300 pixels. Or I can keep the width flexible. That is, whatever is the real estate available. I want my header to be center aligned, so I'll center align this. I want my text to be, I want my text to be Latam app, so I'm going to just call that. And I'm going to change the font size. Perfect. Okay, now in my header, I also want an image of the logged in user. Okay, so I need another control in the header container. I'll pick this container, go to insert, go to my media and pick image. Now this image control, right? If we look at the alignment or the height of this, I can go to header container again and ensure that it is spanning the full height. So the image sits right in there. Now, when you change these things, you might have scenarios wherein your app starts acting up. You see my control, my label control moved. Well, that's because I haven't stretched it the entire height. So sometimes the properties move when you add control. So you need to ensure that your properties are in play at the container level. Now this label is spanning the entire width because I said flexible width is on. The image control on the other side also has flexible width. If I turn it on, notice what happened. 50%, 50%. They both took 50% of the space. Why? Because both of them have flexible width turned on. Now, there's something known as fill portions, means how much percent of the space do you need? A little bit of maths. I have two controls, so it does 1 by 2. You see that? Fill portion 1 by 2, fill portion 1 by 2. But I may want my label control to span more real estate or to take more real estate, maybe 2/3. Change the fill portion to 2. It will automatically make this 2/3 and the other control will become 1/3. You need more real estate, change this to 3/4. This goes to 1/4. And this is flexible, meaning as the width changes, it will automatically allocate the width to both of those controls in that fashion. 1:4 ratio, because that's the code I wrote right here.
Just one comment, Reza, when
Yes.
you do that, like you're changing the size of the screen, seems like it gets freeze.
Oh, it freezes for you guys when I change the size of the screen?
Yeah, maybe you're doing.
Okay, let me try something then. If that is happening, let me extend my screen and sorry, it may pop out for a moment. Let me change my sharing to the full screen experience so no one has any issues. Now you should see my full screen being shared. Do you see it?
Correct.
All right, this time there shouldn't be any problem. So here is an example. When I pick my app and as I start reducing the width, now you can see it in action. You see how the header label and the image control are taking the real estate that's available on the screen in a 1:4 fashion. This is taking 3/4 of the space. This is taking 1/4 of the space. And if there is more width, of course, they will take the remaining width that's available. So that's what is flexible width. That's the property right here that every control within the container gets. Now for my image control, honestly, I do not need flexible width because my image is going to be of a defined size. So I will turn off flexible width. And the moment I turn it off, observe what happens to the label control. It takes all the remaining width. And how much width does it leave? Well, depends upon the width you set for this control. So right now this control has a width of 100. The height, I will set it as 70. So it sits exactly in that space. Right? Even the width, I can reduce it further to 70. So it sits exactly in that spot. And to create a rounded image, all we need is the border radius to be the same as the height and the width. So now that should create that rounded image experience, which for some reason it went away. So I'll keep it as 0. It's called border radius. I'm sorry, it's right here. So if I preview the app, it's that rounded image experience. Now that I have this experience, I will first give this image a background color so it spans that that width. And now what I would like to do here is for this I want to show the current logged in users image. So this is standard Power Apps. So user.image. This should put the logged in users image right in there. So it puts my image on the right hand side, and that's my header control. Fully responsive. Now let's talk about the center section. In the center section, I need gallery to show data. That's the typical use case we have. So here I have a container. Now, in order for me to add that gallery, of course, I need a data source. So let's quickly go and connect to a data source. So I'm building this live. So this is an actual real world example of how you would build responsive apps, by the way. So I'll pick SharePoint as a data source, and I will pick my SharePoint site. And in this, I will pick a list called asset management. So I've connected to a SharePoint list, and let's see what this list has. Honestly, even I don't know. This list has some images of devices and some data. Okay, now I want to show that data in a gallery in Power Apps. So I'm going to select my container section, go to gallery, and I will insert a vertical gallery. Now this gallery goes inside this container. And if we look at this gallery, the flexible, if you look at the properties of this gallery, there's a property now called flexible height, not flexible width. Why? Well, because the container is a vertical container. You see that? It's vertical. If I change this to a horizontal container, now if I go to the gallery, it will have the property flexible width. So do you need the full width or no? I'm going to say yes, take the full width. Great. The gallery is taking the flexible width. Now inside this gallery, I want to first connect it to my data source. So I'll do that. Great. So it shows me the data. If I preview the app, will this be responsive? Yes, this will be responsive in nature. As I squeeze in, you see the gallery is also responsive. However, there is so much real estate to play with, right? There's so much real estate. The gallery can wrap items, and there's a property for the gallery called wrap count. So if I, for example, change this to 4, it can fit in 4 items, which is great. But the problem is, as the width shrinks, now it doesn't look great, right? It's lost the labels. Why? There's not enough width. And if I really squeeze in, it doesn't work for me. On a mobile experience, it's a complete failure. So on a wide screen, I need more wrapping. As the screen width decreases, I want to change the wrap count. So what's the answer here? The answer is I want to not hard code the wrap count. Rather, I want the wrap count depending upon the size of the screen. And remember the screen size property that Power Apps gives us? That already comes with these size breakpoints. So let's leverage this for the wrap count of the gallery. The gallery has associated with the screen. So I'll use the following formula. My name of my screen, screen number 2 dot size. Now let's try it out. The size of my screen right now is 5, wide screen. Notice as I reduce the width, once the screen size changes to 4, you see how the gallery wraps? My screen width reduces. Okay, the gallery fits it in a 3 layout. All right, puts it in a 2 layout. Mobile form factor, okay, 1 layout. So you see how well the gallery realigns or repositions the controls, basically wraps the content depending upon the real estate that's available on the screen. And that is exactly what we needed. So is a gallery responsive when I drop it into a container? Yes, but to make it truly responsive, I need this additional this setup. Okay, Reza, great. We have a gallery, we have data, we have a lot of things here, which is great. In my backend data source, I have a column called status as well. So in my gallery here, let me also show the status of the item. So I'm going to say, show me the status, and I'm assuming it's a choice column in SharePoint, so I'll show the value. So it shows me the status value. Now let's say I need a form so the user can modify the data as well. I want a form control. Now it could be on a different screen, and I can build a separate screen, connect it to the gallery, make the changes, make that responsive, all possible. But I'm going to add I'm going to try and up the level of complexity here. Let's say I want the form control right here in this screen itself. In this screen itself. And for the gallery control, by the way, there's a property called template fill. Basically, what is the item in the gallery that's selected? Let's make a change here. If this item is selected, so if it is the selected item in the gallery, give it a background color of blue, else keep the color as white. So if I preview the app now, when I make a selection, you see the background color changes. So at least I know which item is selected in the gallery. Now in this container itself, I need the form. So what do? I go to forms, add the edit form control. Now the moment I did that, observe the change. What changed? What changed? Well, the container width has changed for the gallery. Why? If I go to properties, gallery flexible width is on, but it's only getting half the width. Why? Because the form is taking the remaining half. Well, I'll just turn it off. Okay, you may turn it off, but you need more real estate for the form. So best option in this scenario would be to give both of them the flexible width. Let them take 50% of the real estate. Let them do that. Okay, so we'll let them do that for now. They both get 50%. Now what? Well, we have the form control. Let me connect that to my data source. Okay, Power Apps will go ahead and build the form for me. Great. The form has too many cards, Reza. Well, yeah, we can remove things. I'm going to keep this extremely simple. I just want the title and the status. I'm just going to allow the user to change a few things, not a lot. So let's just make a few changes. I'll keep the status and maybe, we'll keep the form this much. Okay, great. We have the form control, but Reza, it's not showing me the selected item in the gallery. Well, form control has a property called item. Let's change this to the gallery dot selected, so it shows the selected item of the gallery. If I play the app, any item I select, right, it doesn't. Okay, now there's a problem. The gallery is wrapping based on the screen size. Well, yeah, it is wrapping based on the screen size, because if we look at our screen dimensions, we have the following dimensions in play. Let me remove this. So we have the following dimensions in play, right? But that's not right. Yeah, we need to change it. So what do? Well, we need to change the wrap count again. The wrap counts that I put in play were based on the actual size, assuming the screen was full width. Right now, the gallery is just getting half the width, so I can actually divide this by 2. Little bit of maths, but it works. Right? Little bit of maths, that's it. You have to know how much real estate you have to play with. Okay, what about the form? Well, form has a property called snap to columns that is on by default, and here I can define how many columns I want to stack in a single row. 1 or 2 or so and so forth. Let's preview this. Well, Reza is not taking the full width. Yeah, it's not taking the full width. Why? Well, the form control has flexible width. What about the data card? It's not taking the full width. Well, here's the fix. Each data card has a property called width fit. You need to turn that on. Reza, that's a lot of work. I got to do that for every card. Yeah, but let's just do it for the first 2. Preview and see it in action. Very nice. It fits the entire width. Reza, resize. Yeah, no problem. You see? You see, when there was not enough real estate available, it wrapped. It wrapped. Okay, so these are full width, these are not. What do? Very easy. Just make all of them full width. That's a lot of work. I may have 50 cards. Okay, select a card, hold the control key, select another card, Control A, it selects all the cards, turn on width fit in one go. Preview the app. Now, as the real estate changes, you'll see it automatically adjusting the form also. So very quickly, you've made the form control also responsive. The key to these things were the gallery, the key is the wrap count, the form control, the key is decide how many max columns you want to fit, position your controls and turn on width fit so it takes the real estate that's available. Okay, now I need a submit button so that the user can make a change and submit. What do? Well, you would think I'll select the container and add a button. Well, if I do that, this button goes on the right hand side. Now everything goes away. I want this button to sit below the form. How do I do that? Well, this is a container, so it's a horizontal container. Controls will stack horizontally. If I change this to vertical, this will all go all around. So if you need the button to sit below the form, you cannot add the button here. Rather, in this container, I need another container. This is where nesting comes in handy. So I'll add another container within this container, and I want the form and the button to be stacked vertically. So I'll pick the vertical container. And this form control, I will remove it from here. So cut and go and paste it in the new container that I added, which is a vertical container. So here's my form sitting inside the vertical container. Now in this container, I will add my button, so it'll go right below the form. I will place the button in the center. I will change the text of the button to submit. There you go. Now if I preview the app, this looks more like that form experience. Here's the form, here's the submit button, here's the gallery. As I select the item, the data is changing on the fly. And when the user submits this on select, all I have to do, and this is a full-fledged app by the way, so I'll just submit my form. And once the form successfully submits, I will reset the form so it takes the latest selected item. That's all I got to do. Check it out in action. Let's pick this one. The status is reserved. Let's change this to available, submit. You see, change to available on the fly. Let's pick this. Okay, Reza, show me in a different mode. This is laptop. What about a tablet experience? Okay, here's a tablet experience. Now, here's the mobile experience. Now, if you notice in the middle, the gallery went all, it just went weird. Well, that's because of the match we put in play. What are we saying? Screen size by 2. What happens when the screen size is 3? 3 by 2 is 1.5. So this is where you have to be even more creative. You have to write some logic here. You have to write a switch statement that says, okay, if the real estate available is X, wrap it by 1. If it is Y, wrap it by 2. If it is more than Y, wrap it by 3. So you'll have to write some additional code here to get that thing fixed. However, this is an example of a responsive app. Now I'm running out of time. I want to show you a full-fledged responsive app. And this is one in action right here. Here is an app that showcases data in a gallery, has filters on the left-hand side, so I can filter the data in the gallery, has a tab control on the top, so I can select and tab through different screens or different sections inside my screen. I can go and create new tickets on the fly, so it takes me to a form screen. I can go back. There's a lot of things I can do here. This is a full-fledged app. But here's the beauty of this app. It's fully responsive. Let's test it out. I'll try and reduce the width first, or let's just focus on the width. Full width. You see what happened here? Observe how the width, when the width shrinks, what happens? The gallery changes its behavior. Even observe the menu on the top. The menu also changes. Certain controls also go away. If you look at the header section, it says responsive, design, power apps. But on a mobile device, I don't have real estate, right? So I changed the text also. So I changed the text. Check the navigation menu on the top. When there's not enough real estate, the text completely disappears. Check this out. See, the text just goes away. So on a mobile device, the user gets this experience. On a tablet device, because there's more real estate, they get more information. And on a desktop or on a widescreen monitor experience, it takes the full real estate. And how did I build this app? Containers, containers, containers. Here's my main container. Here's my header container. Here are the controls within the header container. Here's my tabs container, right? Here's a gallery within the tabs container. This gallery did not have that issue that we had. Why? Let's look at the wrap count. Let's look at the formula here. You see, I check to see the size of the screen. If the screen size is small, put it 1. If it's a medium screen, also put it as 1. If it's large screen size, put 2 or 3. So I'm defining the wrap there. That's the logic I added. But here's an example of what you could do. And one more thing around the flexible width aspect is the beauty is, if for some reason I had to hide something. So let's say this container, this container, which is taking 50%. If I set its visibility to false, it is so smart that the gallery will take the remaining space. It knows that that container is not there. So gallery was flexible width, so take the full width. So it comes in very handy when you're showing and hiding things, when things need more real estate. You can literally play with it by using containers. And if you notice my app here, it's packed with containers, responsive containers. And you will also have scenarios wherein I have a container within a container within a container. So that's how you can truly design responsive apps. The answer is containers. You still do need to know a little bit of maths. You need to define where things will sit. That's why you have to plan things out in advance in order to start using all of these features. So that was all about containers. That was all about responsive designing. So just to wrap this up quickly, some learning resources for you to get started with. If you want to learn about that second Power App that I showed you, that app that had everything in it, I have a 50-minute video that walks you through that step by step. If you want to try it out, step by step, that's the URL. The URL is case sensitive, bit.ly/responsive power apps. It'll take you to a playlist of videos that I created around responsive designing. I've done a lot of work with customers, so most of those scenarios that I've showcased there are real world scenarios based on my own experiences. So if you want to check it out, go and try that link out. There's some good videos in there. Of course, nothing beats the documentation from Microsoft. So head over to docs.microsoft.com and start reading and learning about responsive design today. Finally, if you want to connect with me, these are my details. Thank you so much for listening into this session, and I'll open the floor up now for questions.
Thanks, Reza. It was a great session, and I learned a lot of new things here. And I'm gonna, change the way I design apps.
Absolutely.
Today, we have one question, and the other is a comment. This is a great content. Thanks.
Thank you.
The question was in Spanish. So I'm gonna try to translate. It says, when you create an app from the form on a module-driven app, it's on a mobile format, not tablet. So can we use containers on that app?
That's a great question. So when I create a Canvas app from, I'm assuming, okay, let's take an example. So here's my SharePoint. Let me go to my SharePoint list. I think the question is this, that I go and say I want to create an app, right? Give me an app based on the SharePoint list. I'm going to say Latam app 2, right? I want to create an app. Please give me this app. When I do this, or maybe I have already invested in the mobile experience, maybe, right? So it shouldn't give me the authentication piece, but let me just authenticate again. Hopefully this signs me in. So this creates that very standard, simple looking 3-screen app. Now, by the way, I have a video on this as well, wherein I show you how you can just write 3-4 formulas and make this fully responsive. If you want to look at that, give that a shot. It doesn't use the containers, but can I use the containers in an app that has the Canvas form factor defined? And this is a classic example of that, wherein I have a SharePoint list, or I say, give me a Power App. So it creates this 3-screen standard looking Power App. So can I make this responsive? Yes. Same steps. Go to settings, go to display, turn off scale to fit. The moment you do this, if I preview the app, notice already Microsoft has put some logic to make this responsive already. You see, it is responsive to some extent. It's not fully responsive, but at least it gives you some level of responsive designing. And how do I make this quickly responsive? Well, do I really need a container? No. The wrap count of the gallery, I will change this to parent.size. If I preview this app's already to some extent now responsive, right? See, depending upon the width, it will position the items in the gallery. 4, 3, 2, 1. So
okay, great.
You have those options, but can I use the containers here? Yeah, you can use that. Go to add, go to horizontal, or sorry, container. There you go. The containers are here as well. The only thing you don't get here though are those templates. You won't get those responsive templates. And remember, the container in itself is useless. The container has to be made responsive. And to do that, the key thing is, let me add a new screen, add a container. Remember, this in itself is useless unless and until this has the following 4 key formulas. X is 0, Y is 0. You have to do this, especially for a mobile device. Width is parent.width. You would have to take these steps. Width is parent.width. Height is parent.height. Now Now this will be the responsive features. Now if I start adding things into it, let's say I insert 3 buttons in here, right? I need the buttons to wrap, so I'll turn wrap on. If I preview the app, this will be responsive. See, as I squeeze in, the buttons will wrap. So this is an example of how you could build it, but recommendation still is start with the tablet experience.
Okay, great.
Great question.
Okay, well, they say thanks for the clarification.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Well, so I think it's all questions.
All right.
Once again, Reza, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Hope you take a rest today.
I have another session in the morning in a different conference tomorrow. So yeah, the grind continues.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be at the LATAM Summit, and I hope everyone has a good time.
Thank you very much, Reza. See you in the next.
Thank you. Bye.
Gracias. Hasta luego.
Gracias.